Yo, what's good guys? Welcome back to another Shamshir Sound video. Today we're going to be talking about progressive house. And with progressive house, two styles come to mind. One is that really old school one by deadmau5, where you have that lush opening, low pass chords, and you have big evolving chords, big release, really long length tracks. And of course, the newer style, which is becoming very popular, which is what we're covering today, is the sound that you hear on like revealed recordings. You hear it where it's like it has a powerful vocal alongside lush melodies, a lot of reverb, a lot of layering. And so I got introduced to an artist called Kosling, and his stuff is sick. And I'm going to show you, I basically tried to replicate a lot of the components from his track with Still Young. When We Were Young, OMZ. I don't know, I might be murdering the names. Ohms. Anyways, this track is sick. I downloaded the track. It's 128 BPM. And I started making some stuff similar to it. Now, it's not an exact replica, but a lot of the components are similar. And I'm going to let you guys download this FLP. And I think that because we're in the summer, I want to learn more about progressive house of this nature because I want to make more tunes that are more melody focused, more vocal focused. And I think progressive house like this is really great as like summer tracks because they're just so lush. And it's not my forte, so I've been learning a lot. So let's just show you guys what I have here. So I hope you guys like that. Now, compared to his original track, his bass line is more throaty. His leads are, they have a bit more high-end information. The snares are a bit off. The vocal of mine is too low. There's a lot of things that are not perfect one-to-one because at the end of the day, like, I don't know what his mastering chain was like. There's a lot of stuff, but there's a lot that I learned with this. So let's first just show you the kick. The kick is just a cashmere kick, just a simple punchy kick. So with progressive house of newer styles, you're probably going to want something that has a tighter kick. If you're going to use a Vengeance kick, you're going to probably want to tweak the envelope, and I did that here with this one too. I don't think it had much of an impact, but I started with a Vengeance kick, and then I replaced it with the Cashmere one. It felt more suitable. Next, we have the lead. So the lead is 3 parts, and they are all Nexus. One thing I noticed with the Kosling track is that the reverb is really important. A lot of reverb, not to the point where you're going crazy like 50%, 100% on like leads, but I meant find the sweet spot with decay. It's usually going to be stuff where you have like hall reverbs, arena reverbs, where it's like, 2-second decay, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. And so some of these I tweaked the reverb a bit. But it's also good to sometimes have different reverbs because then they can color your track a bit more. So here are the 3 components. His lead also had a little bit of portamento, so I used the same portamento on all 3 of the Nexus using this quick one, just giving it that little pitch bend each time it would play the new note. And that worked out well. The processing on it was a bit heavy. It's really heavy processing. Because if I turn this and make it dry. Now we got wet. I just wanted it to pump through the mix. A lot of like lazy processing on here. Sound Godizer. We have the Sound Godizer with the D. I like the D because it keeps the width. We have this EQ here. Roll off there. We got a roll off. And we have a little bit of just cutting out a little bit of the mids. I felt like his lead had a little bit more of like blistering high-end frequency. We have the fruity reverb. Again, the fruity reverb, I added it late into it because I wanted to just give a little bit more wetness. Be careful with it. I have the low cut at 327 because I don't want tons of low end information. And I'm going to make a video about this. I have sausage fattener at insane values, but I saw a video where I believe it's Data Life, and I'm going to make a video about this, and they had it cranked up, like, I swear, maybe my eyes were mistaken, but I saw them crank up these knobs all the way up in one of their studio videos, but they had the gain all the way down. And when you have the gain, this is minus 36 dB, and it's like, it's driving it heavily, but then you're compensating, and so instead it just gives a little bit more pump and a little bit of color. Because when we turn this off and on, you see how much presence it gives? It gives a lot of presence. The drummer is not extremely important, but it does give a multi-band compression, giving a little bit more clarity to it. And then I have the ultra maximizer to make sure that it doesn't get louder than the kick. The kick has been set to -3. We're working in the digital realm here in 32 bits, so you don't need to turn these quantize or dithering on. And so that is the lead there. We have the sub, so that was the lead and the kick. The sub here, I approached it with different tactics, and his sub is a bit more throaty. Maybe he has a phaser or something on there. I just wanted to make something simple for the sake of this tutorial, because we're just going for a vibe, you know, we're just going for a vibe. So this is the sub. The sub is playing back these notes here, so D and then B, and it was a bit strange to me. I was like, whoa, like he's starting on pretty high notes, but it makes sense. Those high notes and the difference between the bass notes give you a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling. Now mine is probably less Tommy Trashy, and it's kind of more like RP Tiesto-ish, you know what I mean? But I did that all in the sub here inside of the oscillator settings with using a step performer. So a step performer is great if you want to do like a ARP, and it's going from 0, 1 octave, 0, 1 octave, and a little bit of filter FM just for a tiny little bit of like grit. Sometimes that filter FM can give you a little bit of distortion grit, a little bit of feedback grit, a little bit of noise. And we have a virtual analog -24. This is giving a little bit of like low end. And we have, because let's test that out. It's giving that sub. We have another saw wave here. So these two saws, it's gone like kind of like and a little bit of width too with the dimension expander, and a little bit of air here. I backed off the low shelf, but it was because I was making tweaks to the oscillator and found it how I liked it. The processing worked after the fact. So that's what we have there for the sub. So you're gonna make that however you like. If you want to type notes, you could do that. If you want to do like a stepping, maybe use Cthulhu, maybe use like, there's so many ways you can approach this ARP and change the nuances to make it more or less like their track. Of course, these are all mono. And I did introduce this. It's like a clean sine sub with like an even lower low end floor. Like I normally wouldn't go this low. Be able to hear that on phone, but what this is doing is that I'm mixing a little bit of harmonic into this sub. It's very subtle, but like it just gives it like a little bit of like rumbler kind of like earthquake vibe when I mix that in. It's just a sine mono, just very simple with that one. The processing for the sub got a little bit crazy, but it was because I was listening to his and I was realizing that my sub, my bass information just didn't have the impact that his had. So I have Sound Goodizer on there for some pump. We have the parametric EQ2. We have another one just rolling off because mine had a little bit too much brightness. It was stealing information away from the lead. We have R-Bass, Renaissance, which this is making a huge difference. Check this out. With speakers or good headphones, you'll hear that it's giving a lot of sub frequency in that range, and it's giving a lot of power. We have Sausage Fattener. I'm doing the same thing, the same tactic. I'm going to make a video about this. Hilarious. So off, on, and we have the drummer doing the same thing again. Most of these drummers are just doing like transparent. This one has like a punch mode. very subtle. And I have put the waves one knob filter because again, it had too much presence. See how bad that was? Like for mixing in with that stuff, it would have taken away the spotlight. And again, the ultra maximizer so that it doesn't get louder than the kick. So that there, if we just play back these three. So we have that. Now we're moving on to the Chord Lfo. So the Chord Lfo, when I high pass this track, sometimes if you want to hear a track and you want to hear those details, listen to the side only, listen to the mono only, listen to the track maybe low passed to check out what they're doing with their bass, listen to the track just high passed so you can hear the high end information. And I was hearing what he did. I kind of struggled at first, but I just made something like this. I wasn't sure what notes he was doing at first, but I did hear the top layer notes. So then I just took my bass notes, same ones from the sub, and I put the top ones on top. So this is a polyphonic, this is poly synth. We have two voices. We are doing saw as well, very simple, 0 and 12, a little bit of noise, a little bit of reverb on there, a little bit of high shelf boost, and the LFO is giving a little bit of bouncing combined with the bounce from the sidechain. Now, on the subject of sidechain, good thing I didn't forget this, I noticed his lead was sidechain very little. So he was either doing, these guys were either doing like a lower value, or they were doing a tighter curve, like something where the curve wasn't doing 0 to 100, maybe like 20 to 100. So they were either doing something like maybe like this, but essentially I used quick chain rather than doing like free punch or something more aggressive, because his lead was really cutting through the mix as opposed to getting sidechained heavily. So just a quick note on there, experiment with that. And we have, that's essentially it. We didn't create a lot of width with this one, so no dimensions expander. We're just using the pan position. Now this one was more kind of subtle, so I kind of removed a lot of the high-end frequency. I first did a little high pass with parametric, and then I removed a lot of the higher-end frequency, because I just wanted it to be a bit more subtle. You could do the same inside the synth as well. And then the drummer as well is probably doing transparent. It's doing, yeah, neutral. And now when we just listen to these, he also has this blistering white noise. Like it's so loud. Like it's, and I wanted to look for a sample, but I thought, you know what, let me just make this one in massive as well. So he has this blistering white noise, which is like this. I made it a very like wet white noise. I made it very wide as well. It's just standard white noise, but I'm automating the macro and I'm doing that to the low pass 4. What that's doing is it's just closing it. So it starts off very bright and just closes, and this repeats for every, you can take a look here. This repeats for every 4 bars. You can see there the noise. So if we solo just noise, so you can see there's a really wet noise. It wants to serve the purpose of like filling frequency and giving that smash at the drop. A little bit of panning. The panning is just doing a little bit. So the value I believe is at 47. Just giving a little bit of pan combined with the dimension expander, and the reverb is really giving it that wetness. And I also killed a lot of the lows. And the processing is very minimal, just an EQ at around 1,000 hertz. And that is it. And we still have, I think I gave this one free punch because it really wasn't mattering whether I did free punch or a quick chain for that one, because it was more subtle. On top of the kick, I did add this, which was probably not needed, but it gave a little bit of flavor. So it acted as like a top kick, and this was from a loop. Many times though, I'll find that sometimes loops have great starting points for finding a top kick. In this case, this is like a hat. And so I just shortened the loop. I put it on a declicking mode. and that will act as our top kick, just to give it a little bit more punchiness, I find, because without it, it's just not as powerful as it could be. And it's not necessarily one-to-one. They probably don't even have that in their track, but I added it, high pass that one, sausage on there as well with the same tactics. And the kick, same thing with the kick. This kick is being driven heavily just to give it some more presence. Same thing, R bass, but the R bass is just giving it a little bit of more rumble. If I turn off all of these and sausage, so it gives it that presence, a little bit more low end, a little bit more clarity, and to wrap things up, limiting it at -3 for the ceiling. So that covers most of the stuff there. That's essentially most of what I was working on. So I was learning a lot. The closed hat, I couldn't decide whether he was doing like just a standard open hat melody, so I just put something for kind of a filler. Something very simple. It just has a simple EQ on there. This was interesting what he had in his track here. He had a sub impact, so I made that sub impact inside of massive as well, and you can hear this. So it just goes, and it's basically for his fill. During that fill, he has that going on. He has that sub impact, and it's playing the note E. It's playing E, and I just muted it also. You don't want that sub impact leaking into the next drop, so I muted that just using the channel volume from the ones here. And that's essentially it for the chunk of it. We covered the kick, the lead, the sub, Chord Lfo. The Chord Lfo, and when you're doing stuff that's kind of like summer and whatnot, I learned a lot from Data Life watching just some random videos. I'm going to do more with just LFOs giving momentum and groove and motion. They can do a lot because sometimes we use LFO just for the sake of wobble and this and that, but a lot of times it gives momentum, and we need to start using it for reasons that are more than just yay and wobble and, you know, like the typical things. This I kept really low in the mix because I didn't know what he was doing. It sounded like he had a top loop on his track rather than having like a snare, and it was so like it was subtle. Sometimes tracks are like that where the snare is not prominent and the snare is just subtle. So I just lowered the volume, and you know, it's actually lower than the closed hat, which it is what it is, but it is what it is, you know what I mean? And here I'm using just some sweeps, and like these are all effects. A little sweep here because here his track, he has that little sweep. Bum, bum, whoosh. He has that little sweep, so I grabbed one from one of my effects. And then I trimmed this. It was kind of like a big snare, but I used just the sweep. And then I used something like this. Just a big room snare. And here he has some like snare rolls going on. I don't know what they are, but I processed them just crazy just to make it fit into it. I put this polyverse wider all the way up, which is like, I would never do this. I high passed it. I added a lot of reverb, like 1.5 decay, 400 hertz high pass. This is what it's like dry. So I did this just to make it more of like an effect, like in the background. That was the whole point. And the last thing is what accompanies the sub impact. He has this like snare roll going upwards. He might be high passing it, pitching it up. So I did this. So it's the snare, the same snare. The only thing that's happening is that the pitch, the note fine pitch, is going from 0 to 1200 cents, just going upwards. And pitching up your snares is a great way to do like momentum, downwards, upwards. Usually upwards is better to do. And yeah, that's essentially it. Combined with that sub impact, that's what really makes that fill. But just keep in mind the things like this hay and whatnot. His is different pitch, it's a different sample, it's a different vibe. So this was not trying to replicate it exactly, but get some of the ideas going. And overall, I'm pretty happy. Spend about, I don't know how long I spent on this. I think I spent about an hour and a half working on it. And then the rest I was just taking a look and seeing what I wanted to remove, what I wanted to add. And that's essentially it. I hope you guys like this track. Let me know if you guys want to see me work on more progressive house tunes, like stuff like Tommy Trash and like this guy Kosling, because I've always had a love for this genre, but this genre is also very difficult to master because there's a lot going on. And but I mean, it's a challenge at the end of the day. So if you guys enjoyed this video, if you like this stuff, remember to smash that like button, give a big ups to that like. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys want to see. And remember to download this project. It is in the video description. And make sure to smash up that subs. I think we hit 800 subs almost. So thank you guys so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for checking out this video. And I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, keep making them gains. Keep making them music gains. And let's play this back one more time for some progressive house gains. Alright guys, have a great day. I will see you in the next video. Take care.